Hey, what's going on? I'm Matt O'Leary back with another video. And before we get started, I just want to mention that you can follow me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you aren't already, please make sure to subscribe to the channel for more Jets and New York sports content. So, now that we got that out of the way, what I wanted to do today was talk about my expectations for each of the New York Jets prospects that they took in the 2019 NFL draft. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the top, work our way towards the bottom, and I'll talk about what I think they're going to do in 2019 and then what their future is going to look like beyond that. So let's start from the top with the first round pick, Quinnen Williams, defensive tackle out of Alabama. Obviously, if you watch my past video, you would know that I was lukewarm on this pick. I think he's a good prospect, but I'm not sure if he's the right fit because they really needed help on the edge. They already have Leonard Williams up the middle, and they're kind of allocating a ton of first-round assets in the last 9 years. 5 of the last 9 picks in the Jets' first round have been interior defensive linemen. So that obviously drew a little bit of a red flag for me, but as terms as a prospect goes, he looks like he's going to be the best out of all of them. So what I'll do now is I'll give you what I think he's going to do in 2019. So I think he's going to have roughly 5 sacks. I think obviously down the line he can get closer from, and hopefully that 8 to 10 range. I don't think he's going to turn into a 20 sack guy like Aaron Donald did, but if he can give you between 8 to 12 sacks, you're probably taking that from an interior defensive lineman. I'm going to say probably 75 tackles this year, about 10 tackles for a loss. He's definitely someone who's going to get penetration into the backfield, help stop the run, and hopefully cause some disruption up the middle in terms of the pass rushing game. And I think he'll be in the conversation for Defensive Rookie of the Year, kind of like what Sheldon Richardson won us. Obviously, he won it in 2013. But I think that Quinnen is going to be the rich man's version of Sheldon Richardson. Example like Richardson's 2013 and 2014 years before he went off the rails in 2015 and changed positions and all that stuff under Todd Bowles. I think Quinnen's going to be like that. I would say pretty much like peak Sheldon Richardson. As for what he can be down the line, like a Fletcher Cox kind of player, it's a real disruptor, one of the top 5 defensive tackles in the league. When you take someone like this, 3rd overall, and he's supposed to be the best guy in the draft, you're hoping to get a top 5 player at his position. So hopefully within the first 2 to 3 years of his career, he is up in the top 5 of the interior defensive tackle range. So then we move on to round 3, where the Jets had 2 selections. One, Jachai Polite, and then obviously they address the offensive line with Chuma Edoga. So we will first talk about Jachai Polite and what I think he can be. So in 2019, I'm going to say he gets 6.5 sacks. Maybe not leading the team, but in the mix. I'm going to say 50 tackles, 8 for a loss. He is a solid all-around player. I think he's going to be more of a specialist, though. I don't know if he's going to be the definite outside linebacker starter across from Jordan Jenkins, but I think he's going to play a lot. And eventually, I think he's someone who probably is going to give you between 8 and 10 sacks a year. Sure, he might go a little bit above that in some years. Maybe he hits 12, but I don't think he's going to become a J.J. Watt where they're getting 18 plus sacks a year, closer to 20. I don't think that's going to happen, but if he can give you solid stuff off the edge, giving you maybe 8 to 10 sacks a year, I think you absolutely take that. And yeah, Polite was a little bit of a risk because his draft process was so terrible, but he has a lot of talent, and that was displayed at Florida. He had 11 sacks last year. I think he is someone who transitions well, and this is kind of the player that makes or breaks this draft class for Mike Maccagnan. He has to hit on this one. He needs the help at the edge rusher position. So hopefully he is someone that they can rely on. But for this year, I'm going to say 6.5 sacks for Polite. So a pretty decent rookie year for him. Then you have Chuma Edoga, who is an offensive lineman. Now, in 2019, I think he's going to be a backup. So he'll back up Calvin Beachum and Brandon Shell. Now, Shell's injury prone, so chances are he could start a couple of games down the stretch if he gets hurt. Once again, he's coming off an injury as well. But in 2020 and beyond, I think that he is going to slot in as a starting caliber offensive tackle. I don't think he's going to be at the top echelon of offensive tackles in the league, but if you can get a league average starter in the 3rd round, you sign up for it. And his pro comparison is, oddly enough, Calvin Beachum, who is on the Jets and under contract for this year. If he can turn into a Calvin Beachum player, then I'm okay with that. He knows Sam Darnold well because he blocked for him at USC, and if Sam gave him the green light or gave the Jets the green light on Chuma Edoga, then that is perfectly fine with me. And I think eventually, yeah, he turns into a starting caliber offensive tackle around the middle of the pack, which is completely fine. And then maybe you address offensive line, whether it be a tackle or center in the first round of next year's draft, and keep building that offensive line up to protect Sam, because that is one of the more important things. In round 4, you have Trayvon Wesco, a tight end. And this guy seems to project as a tight end number 2. Obviously, Chris Herndon is your number 1 tight end, and he is your receiving tight end. This guy's more of your blocking tight end, so I don't think he's going to be involved a ton in the passing game, but I think he'll be okay in the short to intermediate stuff. So I'll go, he slots in as the number 2 tight end. He pushes Eric Tomlinson off the roster, and maybe Jordan Leggett as well. And I'm going to say he has like 12 receptions for 85 yards. I don't think he's going to have a whole lot of targets. I think obviously Herndon's going to get the bulk, and they have so many other guys that could eat up targets in this offense. Really what you want out of him is solid blocking stuff, and they're going to move him all around the formation. He'll line up as a tight end. He might line up as a fullback. That'll allow Chris Herndon to split out wide sometimes, or they'll go a 2 tight end set. I think it'll be really interesting to see what Adam Gase does with him. And to me, he projects as your long-term solution at the second tight end position as more of the blocker, which is fine because you need that. You obviously have brought in Le'Veon Bell for big money. You're going to need people to block for him. Put him in there. And I think that, to me, makes the most sense for Wesco and what he's going to be in his NFL career. In the 5th round, they took Blake Cashman, an inside linebacker. I know on my last video, I got a lot of comments saying that, no, he isn't slow, what I said. And yes, he ran a good 40-yard dash at 4.5 seconds. So obviously those are pretty good numbers for an inside linebacker. I'm just telling you that the scouting report that I read said that he is slow and undersized. Maybe I was wrong about him. Who knows? But I don't think that necessarily translates to him being a better version than Darren Lee. To me, he is going to be a special teamer on this team. That's the reason why he was drafted. And if he can run fast in a straight line, that's perfect for special teams. He's way too far back on the inside linebacker depth chart right now. You have CJ Mosley, obviously, Avery Williamson. They're going to be your 2 starters. Darren Lee is still on the roster for now. Neville Hewitt will probably be ahead of him. And then maybe Blake Cashman is your 5th guy. So to me, that screams special teamer, which is, I guess, fine in the 5th round. But I just think that some of the fans are overhyping this guy, and if you get him to be an okay special teamer, fine, but I would have addressed a different position in that round. Maybe go back to the well on offensive line at that point, or really more of a position of need, because they've allocated so much money in free agency at the inside linebacker position. I just don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to draft an inside linebacker at this spot, but I digress, and now move on to the 6th round pick, which is Blessuan Austin. He played 5 games over the last 2 years. I like this pick probably the least, and Cashman's right behind that. So really the last 2 picks I don't like at all. I think he's going to spend a majority, if not all, of his rookie year on the PUP list, physically unable to perform. I would be absolutely shocked if he gets any playing time in the regular season. And I will say my guess, or I guess you can call it a hot take, I don't really think it's all that hot, but he will not be on the roster by the time the 2020 season starts. I just don't think this is going to work out. I think he's too injury prone. I think he's going to be hurt this year, and I think that's going to end up costing him a roster spot because you already have so many guys at this position already. And not that they have a great depth at this position, but you have a lot of people taking up roster spots. So are you going to really give it to this guy who is injury prone and probably won't be able to stay healthy in his first year in the league? I would assume probably not. If you agree with my predictions for this year, get at me in the comments, or get at me with some of your own predictions for how you think that the rookies are going to do this year. Obviously, as the offseason progresses, I'll get into more projections and opinions and stuff like that. But for now, I just wanted to talk about the draft class because that is still pretty fresh. And we'll see where this offseason goes. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Again, you can get at me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY. Make sure to subscribe, give it a thumbs up, like, review, all that fun stuff. Appreciate you tuning in, and I'll talk to you next time.